Welcome to the Content Champion podcast. We provide the training and tools to help you become a content marketing champion in your online business. Introducing your host, the content champion himself, Loz James.
Hi guys, welcome to the Content Champion podcast. Thanks for listening. Before we continue, just a couple of quick announcements. If you're struggling with your content marketing and need guidance or training to help take things to the next level, I've got two new ways to help you. Firstly, my new private one-on-one content marketing coaching offer has just been launched, and you can schedule your first 15-minute discovery session free of charge at marketing.Continue.com/coaching. Secondly, we're also beavering away behind the scenes, putting together all the modules for the Content Champion Academy Training Centre. So to secure exclusive discount pricing on this simple step-by-step content marketing system when we launch, visit contentchampion.com/academy. Now, back to today's guest. On the show this time, I'm delighted to welcome back Rob Cornish of Gain Higher Ground, who has the distinction of not only being a very talented online marketer, but is also the first guest to appear twice on the show. Rob has just released a new report called Interrupt to Profit, which outlines how we can use psychological triggers in our content called pattern interrupts to increase our conversions. Intrigued? I certainly was, so let's dive in. Thanks for coming on again, Rob.
It's an absolute pleasure, Loz. It's brilliant to be back, and thank you for inviting me.
Now, for those who haven't heard the first show we did together, could you remind us about your backstory, please, and tell us all about Gain Higher Ground?
Sure. I started online in 2010. That was just after I got made redundant from working pretty much 10 years in the financial services industry in London. And like many people who come online, I was in search of a bit of a change, the flexible hours, location independence, low startup costs, all of these things, and scalability, of course, on a global scale. Those are all things that really attracted me, and really I still love. I mean, those are the main benefits of doing business online. But also, like a lot of people, I struggled massively when I began. So I kind of kicked off or got interested about April 2010, but I really didn't make any money at all until the end of 2010. And even then it was small bets. And I was dabbling in various niches. I made my first money in the collectibles niche, collecting vintage metal lunchboxes. I had a blog on that, which is a very bizarre niche, not one I recommend, by the way. And then I moved into the stock trading niche in 2011, and that's when things really started to get going, because that's a much bigger niche. And I did pretty well, actually, in that niche, stock trading. And then kind of just started, you mentioned Gain Higher Ground, that just started as my blog. And it's just like a diary, an online journal that I was kind of writing what I was doing, all the things that weren't working and some of the things that were working and all of that. And then the audience for that started to build up, because I did a few guest posts and some other content marketing. And really at the end of 2011, people were saying, well, have you got any other training and so on? So I launched a membership site. And that was really my first big product in the IM niche at the end of 2011. And then from there, just sort of built it out, and been going ever since.
And it's really all gone from strength to strength, hasn't it? I know that you've got a very high customer satisfaction record with the membership site you just mentioned, and you're very prolific when it comes to creating new sort of information products and software products, aren't you?
Yeah, I've done quite a few different things. So, I've done live events. I've done some software products. I've got 2 software products. Done a lot of information products, video and audio. So I guess that's great in one respect, because it gives you great experience. I suppose there are disadvantages, because sometimes it's probably good just to pick one thing and just stick with it. So, for example, you could just do software. There's a lot of people that do that. And just go really in depth and in that respect. But for me, it's about a lifestyle. And one of the brilliant things about this business is you can do what you like. So why not? Different projects gain my interest at different periods in time. And I just think, well, let's try that. We'll go off and do that. And then something else comes up. The lifestyle's brilliant. The money's great. And it's a lot of fun. So you can't ask for much more than that, really.
Exactly. I mean, I've been working for myself now for I don't know, 16, 17 years. And apart from being unemployable, I absolutely love it. I wouldn't have it any other way because, like you say, that freedom to have the different income streams and try things out. Not everything works, but, then you get a winner and you get your core products and services going and it's just all good. Anyway, on that note, we are here today to talk about pattern interrupts. This is something that's really interesting to me when we were chatting about it because it's not something I'd really heard of before within this context. So could you tell us what they are and how we can use them? And perhaps we could also talk about the problem facing content marketers, namely getting their voice heard amongst all the increasing online noise.
Yeah, absolutely, Loz. So let's break this down. We'll start with, because as you say, not everyone will have heard of pattern interrupts. So let's start with kind of what they are. A pattern interrupt is something that gets people's attention by disrupting, or as the name implies, interrupting the normal flow of events that are expected. So when we watch a video online, or when we walk into a shop and speak to the assistant behind the counter, or do anything else in life, whether it's business related or personal, it's hardwired, it's become hardwired in our brains, the normal flow of events that should happen. So when something outside of those events occurs, or those events are disrupted, that really gets our attention, first of all. The effect of that, when you apply it to marketing in particular, is it disarms people, or it throws them off balance. So they're more open to accepting new ideas and less likely to resort to their kind of inbuilt defense mechanisms. So that's kind of the definition, but the best way of explaining it really is with an example. So shall I go on and explain a kind of example?
Yeah. Go on to some examples and then we'll sort of come back to why these are so important, because obviously these can give you a real head start with all that sort of content noise that's going on, which is becoming an increasing problem. So yeah, definitely hit me up with a few examples.
Okay, cool. Well, the first thing to do is just for the concept of pattern interrupt. If anyone's listening to this who has access to the internet, so it won't apply to people who are driving, I suppose, and other people like that. But if you go to Google and search for VW lemon ad, so VW lemon ad, and what you'll see if you do that is a very old ad by Volkswagen. From 1960, and it's a black and white ad. And for the benefit of people who aren't looking at this while we're talking, the top 2/3 of the ad is a picture of a VW Beetle. And below it, the headline is lemon. Now, lemon is a mainly North American term, a derogatory term for a poor quality vehicle. And it's got the Volkswagen logo on the bottom, and obviously it's the car. So at the first glance, if you see this on a billboard or on, in the newspaper or something, it obviously looks like Volkswagen are calling that one of their own cars, one of their own products, poor quality, which is crazy, right? Because, why would that's totally the opposite of most ads you see. And of course, that is the pattern interrupt. So you can't, This ad was so successful, and it's a good example because straight away you can see how it totally grabs people's attention. But not only does it grab attention, but it creates massive curiosity. And that's the other really important thing for a successful pattern interrupt. So it's no good just grabbing people's attention by making a loud noise or something like that, because it'll grab the attention, but it'll put people off, you'll drive people away. So you've got to grab the attention and then generate that curiosity. So with this particular ad, below the main image of the VW Beetle, you've got the headline lemon, and then you've got some text which explains why they've called it a lemon and so on. I'm not going to ruin the surprise. I'll let people go and look that up for themselves. It's just a few paragraphs and then it becomes clear. But what also happens, which is another attribute of a great pattern interrupt, is that creates a lasting memory in people's minds. So as you've alluded to already, Loz, that we're all blasted by, masses of information today with email, social media, ads, TV, newspapers, billboards, loads of stuff every day. And you remember virtually none of that media. But the ones you do, but pattern interrupts can literally burn that image into your head. Once you look at this ad from VW, you'll never forget it. So that's an example of the power of a pattern interrupt. Now, obviously, as online marketers, we're probably not going to create those type of ads, that was a corporate example. But I think it's a useful one to look at because it gives you the concept and the understanding of what actually a pattern interrupt is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And Rob, is this based in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming? Is that where this comes from?
Well, my understanding is, and I obviously in creating the products I've done on pattern interrupts, I did a lot of research. It's a research-based product, effectively. And my understanding, and I say that because I'm not qualified in NLP or anything like that, pattern interrupts are used heavily in NLP, in conversation and that kind of thing. But actually, pattern interrupts predate NLP. So they've been going a lot longer than that. But I think what NLP did is popularise them.
Because I'm thinking of copywriting as well, and headline writing, and the discipline of headline writing going back through the ages. And some of the famous copywriting headlines, the "Do you make these mistakes in blah blah blah, etc., are kind of designed in a similar way to sort of change up how you're thinking about things and grab your attention and sort of change the way you're thinking about something, and almost make you sort of do a double take on it. And that's the sort of impression we want, the aim we want, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And the great thing with them is once you the first stage, obviously, to understand what they are and the concept, which we've gone through. Then what we do is we start looking at the applications, and that's really what I've done in the product. Because if anyone's listening who's been through any of my stuff before, I'm not really into masses of theory or anything. All I really am interested in is like, how do you do it? To get the benefits, so the practical aspect of it. So what you then do is start looking at how you can use them. And it turns out you can use them in all sorts of marketing methods. If you're doing webinars, you can use them there. You've mentioned headlines. They're brilliant for that. Also, email subject lines, very effective there. And also in the body copy. So obviously the subject line drives the open rate, and the body copy drives the click-through rate. So by using pattern interrupts there, you can already have a massive effect, knock-on effect in terms of the ultimate money you make when you're promoting products. And even in things like in the products, it's a smaller section, but I also cover how to use it in conversation. So if you do any kind of phone selling or talking with clients, it'll be helpful for that. And presenting on stage, and even direct mail, which I know is much lower amount of people use that. It's just a small amount, but still, it's still very powerful there. So it's one of these brilliant things that the more I learned about it, the more interested I got, and I thought, there isn't a product out there on this. There's little bits of information here and there, but I've not been able to find anything. So I thought this is something that's got to be made. We've got to make this product, and that's really the inspiration behind it, and why I'm really excited about it.
Okay, so like you mentioned, that's what they are. That's how we can use some of them, and we've talked also about cutting through that content noise. This is a real problem, isn't it? Whether it's content shock that we're talking about, as more people adopt content marketing and use content in online marketing techniques, we need a way, don't we? An innovative and sort of white hat, legitimate way to get our voices heard, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely you do. And the solution to it is obviously multifaceted. There's no one single solution. Pattern interrupts are brilliant, and they're hugely powerful. They really, really are. They're not 100% of the solution, though. You can't just rely on that. So all the other things that you talk about, Loz, in the podcast and about content marketing, there are obviously different strategies and techniques. But the pattern interrupts one of the other great things about it is that, as we've talked about, not that many people really understand it. And those that do kind of think it's sort of to do with NLP, and they, if if you ask somebody, you say, have you heard of pattern interrupts? And they said yes. And then ask them to give you 5 or 6 specific examples of how you can make more money on the internet with them using content marketing. I bet they couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. But once they've read this product that I've put together, that's exactly what it's about. And I didn't know before I looked into this, but I've just done the work, done the research to put it all together. And the applications are really quite cool. And all of them really, they're tiny little things like the lemon, headline. That's a simple but powerful example. It's so quick to do them, It's not like you've got to write a 30-page ebook. These are all tiny little snippets. There's things that you can do in video as well, which last sort of 3 or 5 seconds, which can have a massive impact on the number of people that actually watch your video all the way through.
You're listening to the Content Champion podcast, showcasing the training and tools you need to become a content marketing champion in your online business.
I don't want to obviously give away all of your secrets from the product we're talking about, the Interrupt to Profit product that you've put together, which we'll go on and talk about the specifics of that a bit later on as well. But are there any examples that you could, just share with us to give us a heads up of some of the things we could be doing, some of the existing content we've got out there that we can go and inject some of these pattern interrupts into to help us make more sales, to get us more leads?
Yeah, I can talk about some other things that perhaps people might have seen already. So have you ever started a video and seen a warning at the start? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a classic thing that's really has been used quite a lot, and it still works really well. And that's an effort to make a pattern interrupt. It's a pretty obvious one. I'm sure that most people watching this video have seen that. So you start the video up and it goes, warning, this video might make you completely change what you thought was true about whatever topic. So, grabs the attention, creates the curiosity and gets people watching. But what you can do is start using those similar sort of techniques in a much more subtle way. Frank Kern, who obviously many people will know, is one of the marketers who's famously used pattern interrupts for years, and he's used them really to great effect. So a little example, and this shows you how subtle they can be, and they almost sound silly. When you actually explain them, they say, well, that's just so silly. It's so simple. But that's because we're talking about it. When the user gets to the page and sees it and experiences it, the effect is really quite dramatic. So I'll give you a subtle example from Frank Kern. Start of one of his videos, you can imagine it. You click the link, you go to the page, the video auto plays, so it starts up, and Frank comes on, goes, "Hi, Frank Kern here. Oh, look, we're just staring at a blank desktop here, so let me just pull the keynote slides up. Okay, there we go, and we're off and running." What that's called is like an impromptu start. So rather than have the slides on slide 1, as most videos do, and you've got your headline, it's almost like you're thrown just for a few seconds. It's like, why hasn't he got the slides? What's happening here? And it sounds so silly, doesn't it? But those kind of little things that you can do can really have quite a dramatic effect in terms of percentage terms on the number of people that go on and get engaged in the content.
The psychology behind this, the sales psychology, is fascinating, because it is the case that when you go into your daily routine, it is just that. It is a routine. You have a routine life online, and you will go into different channels of thinking. I'm checking my emails now. I'm, doing some web development now. I'm writing some content now. I'm setting up certain piece of software now. And you kind of, I think there's a term that I'm trying to dig out my university psychology that I did now. There's, I think, a term called the sensor, which is kind of between your waking and your sleeping mind, but it kind of informs what you do when you're not really thinking, when you're almost daydreaming.
Right.
And so you might be checking your emails. We've all done it. We're surfing the web, we're checking emails when we should be doing something more productive. And that kind of sort of almost lackadaisical thinking is suddenly snapped out of it when you see something like you've just described, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. It's just a bit of a shock. But the trick, the art of it is, so there's a bit of science behind it, because as you said it's about psychology. There's also a bit of an art to it in the sense that you can mess it up. So if you just, like I said before, if you just blow a loud horn in someone's face, you'll get the attention, but you'll repel them because they'll be like, oh, this is offensive. I don't want to, and they'll go off. So it's got to be done in a subtle way. And that's one of the ways, you have to do it. I cover this as well in the right way to actually apply them for maximum effect. You can do this all sorts. Another, subject line for email, a great one is to ask questions. If anyone's watching with the internet, you can look up Time magazine covers, there's some great ones. So one was like a big black cover with "Is God Dead" written on it, ? So you can imagine that in the newsagents, or you go into the store, it really stands out amongst all those over hundreds of magazines. On email subject lines, one of the highest open ones that I've ever done, which is a little bit playful, but it's "Friday Quickie?" which you can obviously use to promote a blog post, to just encourage people to open the email so you can share some tips, or to actually promote a product. Again, they sound just obvious and it just sounds, basic, but if you can boost your open rate by 10%, and it can be as much as that, it's really quite dramatic. And you can then get them to one of your squeeze pages or your sales page with and get 5% more people or 15% more people reading it. That really it all flows down to the bottom line and how much money you make. And with the increasing amount of noise that you've got coming through, as we've alluded to, I think we can all agree that's only going one way. There's more email, more social media, more information we're consuming. These are such great ways to just cut through that noise in a kind of elegant way. You're not being forceful. You're just doing things slightly differently, and people respond to that. And it also, because it creates that lasting memory in a lot of cases, it sticks in people's minds. So one of the secrets is repeat business in any business, really, from the same customers. So it helps on that front as well.
Number of things that come out of that. Obviously, these little tweaks can be game changing in terms of online conversions. But it also, when you were talking then, just reminded me of, in a copywriting sense, is sort of the discipline I come from. Yeah, you can use headlines to get attention, but the headline should be selling the first sentence of the content that you then go into, and then filtering down through there. So it's no good, as you say, blowing a horn, saying something offensive just for the sake of it to get that attention, if it doesn't have any relevance or context to what's coming next, which is sometimes, you mentioned some mistakes you can do with this when it's not that subtle. We've all got those emails all the time where you get things like, your invoice and stuff like this, and you think it's an admin email, and you click through and it's a sales email and it's no relevance at all to it. If you use these pattern interrupts in that way, you're on a hiding to nothing. So you've got to be, think about them and research them and use them in an intelligent and subtle way, haven't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's not that they're not dangerous. If you use common sense, you're probably all right. But I do go into, there's two main rules for it that I talk about in the report. If you stick to those, you can't really go far wrong. In terms of the examples, that hopefully we've covered a few to give people who are listening an idea. But they actually get even more subtle than that. So, for example, I will cover one section where we look at PowerPoint presentations, which obviously you can use on stage, you can use in videos as well. And there's just something you can do there with the slides, which doesn't even involve any text. And that has a big increase on engagement as well. So all these little tricks, it's like the best way to think about it is a little toolbox. So if you're a copywriter or you're doing any kind of marketing, if you've got this extra toolbox, you can just pull them out as and when, and you can use them from your email marketing to your sales page, in your products, in your videos, wherever you're doing this, and you just have a positive impact everywhere and cut through that noise in a more elegant way.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, I've been reading Interrupt to Profit, your new report on these pattern interrupts over the last week, and it's fascinating. There's so much packed into it. You've talked about different facets of it, different parts of the report that you've put together. Can you go through the whole product and tell us where we can find it? Then we can move on to the PS question, because I want to pick your brains for the second time on that.
If you go to gainhigherground.com/interrupt to profit, that should take you over to the sales page.
And could you walk us through a bit of the structure of that? What have we got in there? Give us an idea of the contents and what people can expect.
Yeah, it's basically just a report. Okay, so it's a PDF report, and it explains what they are, all the applications, and specific details. So this is really, you can think of it as almost done for you. Effectively, these are things that you can use right out of the box. In all these different applications, as we mentioned, there's probably, 15 maybe different ways that you can use these. So they're really done for you. You can pick these up and implement them. They're super quick, sometimes even just a few seconds to implement them, or sometimes, a few minutes. Very quick. But the other thing it will give you is a good foundation for creating your own. So as you go forward, you will have this mindset and this toolbox where you'll be able to implement these pattern interrupts in various different places into the future. And of course, because it's based on psychology, it's evergreen. So this is not some loophole that is going to stop working in 3 months. These have been working for, we started off with an example from 1960, didn't we? And they've worked for much longer than that, going back in time, and they will continue to do that if you follow the simple rules that I lay out in Interrupt to Profit. There's also a Rolodex one-page PDF which comes as a bonus, and that's kind of a summary of the main techniques. So what you've got there is just one page. You can print this out or just keep it in your swipe file or whatever, and it's a list of the different techniques, where they can be deployed, and some other information. And of course, for the full detail, you can go back to the main PDF report for that.
Wait for it, listeners. Here comes the PS question.
Fantastic. Well, look, this is what I call the PS question. You're the first person to answer this question twice.
Okay.
So, could you share another advanced content marketing tactic we can use right after the show, please, Rob?
Yes, I think this may be something that people have heard before, but all I can tell you is I've done it repeatedly and it works great. Is to take some of your content, and that could be part of one of your products, or it could be an entire product in its entirety. It could be some of your most popular blog posts. And what you do is you put that together, either as it is, or repurpose it into a cheat sheet. So a short summary report, if you like, just giving golden nuggets, and offer that for free to other marketers for them to use as a bonus. I've done this several times, and it just works so well because, those other marketers benefit because their product becomes more valuable because it's got your product as a bonus. The customers love it because they get more content, and it's good for us because we get proven buyers put onto our email list.
Well, that's a fantastic idea. So you're not putting it on your own platform. You're collating this information, giving it to someone else as a bonus. Fantastic idea. Well, look, Rob, thanks again for coming on. This second time, it's amazing that you've come on the show twice, and you've got a great product there, and it's been a great call. And I get for a second time to wish you all the best of luck with everything in future.
Oh, thank you very much. You're very kind, and thanks again for having me on.
You've been listening to the Content Champion podcast, available at marketing.Continue and on iTunes. Until next time, thanks for listening.